I now like to introduce this panel by describing the work that some of us did in the streets of New York City. It was very difficult. I don't want to talk too much because I'd like to hand it over to our panels, but we have extremely distinguished panel today. I'm going to let them all introduce themselves. We'll go right down the line here. And once you hear their stories, you'll know why we're all here together. Go ahead, Sujata.
Good morning. So it's such an honor to be here. My name is Sujata Gibson. I'm a civil rights lawyer and a part-time law professor at Cornell Law School, where I teach in the area of movement law. I've been a part of the, I guess you would say, the MAHA movement, and it was the medical freedom and other movements for a long, long time. And it is amazing to see how far we've come. It is amazing to see the synergies between medical freedom and soil regeneration and healthy food, all of the things that are going to make our nation thrive and make us all free, coming together. That is a powerful testament. But it's also, we have a long way to go. So New York is kind of what I would say is ground zero for where the work is really still very intense. In New York, we had some of the most draconian lockdowns and vaccine mandates in the country. New York City imposed vaccine mandates on all workers in every sector, private and public, and made bizarre carve-outs here and there for like famous entertainers or ball players and their entourages. But the rest of the city was subject to these mandates, and outrageous religious discrimination and medical discrimination took place under those mandates. I represented thousands and still represent thousands of these workers, and I'm still fighting. We have gotten some victories. We were able to strike down the healthcare mandate, the COVID mandate for healthcare workers that was keeping 34,000 healthcare workers, doctors, nurses, and so forth, out of their jobs. We were able to get good. We were able to get important rulings protecting religious rights in New York City, and many, many cases we've won where workers are reinstated through orders, but New York City still hasn't let them come back to work. Today, we have thousands of the people who kept our city going through the darkest days of COVID, who picked up our trash, who fought our fires, who kept our streets safe. They are still being kept out of work. Teachers, problem codes have been attached to their employment files. They can't get a job elsewhere. Their lives have been ruined. And I've seen the human toll up close. I've seen the firefighter who was working so hard for his family and had such a bright future ahead of him, and who got hurt fighting fires for people and saving people, now rendered homeless, struggling to get anybody to listen to him, even though there's a court order saying he's supposed to be back at work years ago. This is the state we're in New York, and they get an automatic stay on appeal, and these appeals go on for years. So we're winning some legal victories, but we need more. So I want to tie that in a little bit to movement law. One of the things that I talk to my students about is that victories aren't really won in courtrooms. Courts play an important role, but victories come first from the streets and from the culture shifting. Courts don't really like to make new precedent. They like to follow the culture. And MAHA has made it. MAHA has done amazing things. Our culture is shifting. People are starting to understand that basic civil rights, basic rights to decide what happens to your own body, rights to be free of poisons, rights to have your religious beliefs respected, are important. But we have to keep up with those efforts. And part of what we need to do is keep storytelling, keep speaking to power, and keep seeking pressure that will help the courts understand how important it is to make this right. because these workers have given us everything, and we owe it to them to fight for them. So I am so glad to be here today, and I'm going to hand it off to the actual workers to talk about what it's been like and what they think should happen. So
Thank you so much, Sujata. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Marcus Thornton. I'm the president and co-founder of Feds for Freedom. As I mentioned earlier, I am still a current federal worker, and so any views I express today are mine alone and not those of any employer. But I'm the president and co-founder of this organization that really was born as a result of the vaccine, the COVID mandates for the federal workforce. And so now we're an organization of nearly 10,000 federal employees and contractors actively employed within the federal government who came together out of a desire to see the federal workforce, first and foremost, just to be able to maintain their medical freedom, their religious freedom, their bodily autonomy, and to have a choice when it came to the COVID mandates. That was a choice that we didn't have. It was taken away from us, and we were punished severely for standing up for our rights. We were, as an organization, we were shadow banned, deplatformed, and everything else, but as individuals, many of us were terminated. We had our security clearances revoked. We were fired. We still have employees today that have not been reinstated. People like FBI agent Garrett O'Boyle, who, because they stood up for what they believed in, they were forced out of the federal government. We had federal agencies during this period labeling anybody who was skeptical of COVID mitigation measures as an insider threat. And so, now we're trying to fight for reinstatement of those employees, to have the record corrected, but also to seize this opportunity within the Make America Healthy Again movement to make sure that moving forward, not only federal workers, but all Americans have the right to maintain their bodily autonomy, to maintain their medical freedom, their religious freedom, and to not have to go through what we went through over the last 3 years. We've been so grateful to Secretary Kennedy and so many others in the movement that have stood with us over the past few years. And this is such an important issue. It's impossible to overstate the harm that was done to our liberties over the last few years. And it's really encouraging to see what broad support there is for correcting that and for getting back to a point of really making America healthy again. Now we continue within the federal government. We want positive reform. We want a government that is responsive to the American people, that is reflective of the American people, that is truly of the people, by the people, and for the people. And, unfortunately, in recent years, that's not what we've had. So a lot of organizations, a lot of people are seeking to push positive reform within the federal bureaucracy, but they're doing it from the outside in. So we're the only ones that are doing it from the inside out, and we're going to continue to fight that fight. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you today.
Thank you so much, Marcus.
Good morning. My name is William Riley Fernandez. And first of all, I'd like to thank Leland, and I think we should give him an applause for organizing this. Absolutely awesome, and it's nice to see that I'm with fellow New Yorkers here in New York. I'm a New Yorker, so we talk quick. But this is very important because it's not only I have 4 suggestions here, but solutions. Because I'm a UPS Teamster, active Teamster for the last 42 years. So I always kid around, the longest summer job I've ever had. Brothers and sisters, fellow labor leaders and champions of workers' rights, today I stand before you as a proud advocate for workplace safety, labor rights, and the fundamental principle of worker autonomy. As a former Teamsters Health and Safety Director, I have spent my career ensuring that the men and women who power our industries, move our supply chains, and keep this country running are not just respected, but protected. I am here to speak on a victory that belongs to the workers, 350,000 UPS Teamsters who stood their ground, fought corporate and government overreach, and won the right to make their own medical decisions without fear of job loss. This victory was not just about a vaccine. It was about preserving the dignity, autonomy, and rights of workers in every industry. And today we must ask ourselves, how do we ensure that no worker ever has to fight this battle again? Now, the battle for worker safety and autonomy. When COVID-19 pandemic hit, we saw just how vulnerable America's workforce truly was. But while the virus itself was a challenge, the policies that followed created an entirely new crisis, one of coercion, job loss, which was discussed, and disregard for individual rights. Across the country, workers in healthcare, education, firefighting, and law enforcement were given an ultimatum: comply or be cast aside. Nurses and doctors who had been hailed as heroes were fired overnight for refusing a vaccine they felt uncertain about. Teachers, the backbone of our education system, were told that their years of service meant nothing if they did not comply. Firefighters and police officers, the very people who risked their lives for public safety, were stripped of their badges and benefits for exercising their right to choose. These were men and women who had dedicated decades to their professions, yet they were tossed aside without hesitation. But then there were the UPS Teamsters. And by the way, I was Mr. Robert Kennedy's labor advisor and New York State Latino coordinator. And the one that brought me in was this gentleman right here, Congressman Dennis Kucinich. Thank you. Now, how 350,000 UPS Teamsters stood their ground and won. When corporations and policymakers tried to impose a one-size-fits-all mandate, the Teamsters refused to comply blindly. We fought back. We leveraged our collective bargaining power, ensuring that our voices were not ignored. We stood united, drivers, warehouse workers, part-timers, the country, refusing to let our livelihoods be held hostage. We did not allow corporations or the government to dictate that what we put in our bodies, and we won. No forced vaccinations, no job terminations, not one, and no worker left behind. This was not just a victory for UPS Teamsters, it was a victory for labor movements everywhere. Our message was clear: workers have rights, and we will not be bullied into submission. A blueprint for the future should be the template through the Teamsters, protecting workers in the next crisis. What happened during the COVID-19 pandemic must never happen again. We must take the lessons learned from the UPS Teamsters fight and use them as a blueprint to ensure that in future crises, whether it's another pandemic, a government mandate, or corporate pressure, labor unions stand prepared to defend their members. Now, these are not the suggestions, these are the solutions. 1, enshrine medical freedom in every union contract. Every labor contract should include protections against forced medical procedures or terminations based on medical status. Just as we negotiate wages and benefits, we must negotiate for medical autonomy as a fundamental worker right. 2, strengthen the power of collective bargaining. Our victory at UPS was possible because we organized, unified, and we had a strong bargaining position. Other unions must solidify their power so that in any crisis, they can negotiate from a position of strength, not desperation. 3, defend workers in essential sectors. Healthcare, education, law enforcement, and firefighting unions must take preemptive action. We must advocate for laws that prevent job terminations based on personal medical decisions. No worker should ever be faced with the choice of feeding their family or following an unwanted mandate. 4, build coalitions like we have here across industries, whether it's union or non-union. This is not just a Teamsters fight. This is a labor-wide fight. We must form alliances between transportation workers, first responders, educators, healthcare professionals, and private sector unions to ensure that no industry is left unprotected. Our labor movement is stronger together. The UPS Teamsters proved that standing together works, but now we have the responsibility to ensure what we fought for becomes a standard for all unions. Let this be a call to action to every labor leader in this country. Make worker autonomy a top priority in your next contract negotiations. To every worker who was forced out of a job, like we just heard, during the pandemic, know that your fight was not in vain. Your sacrifice must drive us to ensure this never happens again. To top policymakers and lawmakers, we will not be ignored. The labor movement has woken up, and we demand protections that respect both labor and our rights as individuals. The strength of labor has always been in unity, resilience, in the willingness to fight for what is right. And today we say out loud and clear, never again. And before I finish, I think that God bless Robert Kennedy Jr. and God bless President Trump for allowing the MAHA movement to flourish, because this is just the beginning. Thank you.
Really great job. Thank you so much, Riley.
Good morning. Leland, good morning. Thank you for having me here, and the MAHA Institute for having me. My name is Louis Savello, and I'm the president of the Suffolk County Police Benevolent Association. We're a police union. Thank you. Police union from Long Island, New York. And you may have noticed many men and women running around town in uniform this week, and that is because it is National Police Week. So this week, thank you. This week we added 365 names to the police memorial here in Washington, D.C. So that's 365 brave men and women who were killed in the line of duty. So we have members in our unions that are willing to risk their lives. They're willing to risk their lives every single day, willing to risk their lives during COVID, to stand on that front line. What they weren't willing to do was to take an experimental vaccine that they did not know what the effects were going to be on their health, what the effects were going to be on their children's health. They were willing to give up their jobs and be terminated, not to take this vaccine. I had my members, young women looking to start families, very frightened about what might happen during that pregnancy if they were forced. And we came together, like Riley and the Teamsters, and through political power and grassroots action, pushed back. And my members were carved out. We were not forced to take that vaccine. They were able to make their own medical decisions. But so many of my brothers and sisters, as you just heard on this panel, New York City, police officers in New York City, nurses, teachers, all those people who do stand on those front lines, were forced or were fired, right? We're not forcing you. You just have to choose between feeding your family and putting this in your arm. That's your choice. Well, that's no choice at all. In New York, Governor Kathy Hochul, her message was clear. Nurses, doctors, take the vaccine, union nurses, or I will fire you and I will bring in scab labor. That's the message from a pro-labor governor. And that's why it is so important. As organized labor, you can imagine as a police officer, my politics don't lean too left, right? So it's a little unusual for me to be at a Bobby Kennedy rally where I met Riley.
Absolutely.
Okay. And as a labor leader, your politics probably don't lean right, right?
Now they do. I was independent. I'm a registered Republican now.
You know, that's why it really is critical that, you know, we shouldn't be beholden to any political party. We should be beholden only to doing what's right, right? What's right for our members, what's right for this country. And what's right is to let people make their own decisions, right? Let people with their doctors and their medical advice make their own decisions. I sit and I chair our healthcare in Suffolk County as well. And the racket and the crime that healthcare is in this country right now, everyone hand is in the kitty, every one of these drug companies, it is a complete racket, and as a police officer, I know a thing or two about crime. It is criminal. It is criminal what is being done. I can tell you, a good friend of mine sits on a chair of one of the hospital networks in New York. And during this whole crisis, and I was, supporting Bobby more and more. I like to keep an open mind. Yeah. And I'm chatting with him about it, and I'm telling him about some of what Bobby Kennedy had to say about the vaccine, et cetera, and about my members not wanting to be mandated. And he's telling me, well, what do you mean? I mean, all the expert class, the doctors, these renowned doctors that sit, and he works with, as chair of this medical system, are all saying the same thing. And how dare I question them? How dare Bobby Kennedy question them? Right? And I asked, well, let me ask you, where were these doctors during the opioid crisis? Right? Ooh. What were they saying? Were they sounding the alarm about how addictive Oxy was going to be? How it was going to be a plague on this country? How teenagers were going to end up dead? Were they sounding those alarms? No. You know what those doctors were saying? What's your pain? 1 to 10. Yeah. Pushing poison. Getting their pockets lined. You know who is sounding the alarm? Bobby Kennedy. I'm very proud to be part of this MAHA movement. This is a broad coalition. Again, you might not think a police union leader has a vested stake in this. We do, right? We all have a vested stake. From our food system, our farmers, our ranchers, to our labor leaders, to our police officers. We're all in this together. We need to push this forward. Labor needs to be involved. This needs to never happen again the way it did. It shouldn't happen to our children, and it's up to us to make sure that it doesn't happen. Thank you. Woo!
Well, I have the great good fortune of saying that we're going to be doing this on a regular basis, so we'll be able to have more conversations in the future. But we're going to take another break, and we'll get another panel up here in about 5 minutes. Thank you very much for being here.